The man walked through the crowded alien city with a tired face. He had been traveling for days, moving from one starport to another, searching for work and a little peace. The glowing signs of strange shops and loud voices of merchants filled the streets, but one place caught his eyes. A small restaurant stood between two tall alien towers. Its sign was written in broken human language. It said, "Rare steak, real taste." His stomach growled. He had eaten only dry rations for days. The smell of roasted food came from the doorway, and his hunger pulled him closer. He thought, maybe this was a chance to finally enjoy a normal meal. He stepped inside, not knowing that this meal would change everything. The restaurant was dim, lit with strange blue lamps that hummed softly. The walls were covered with fabrics that looked alive, shifting and moving like they breathed. Dozens of aliens sat at round tables, whispering and staring at him. Their eyes followed his every step. Some looked amused, others curious, and a few looked almost hungry. A tall alien with 4 arms approached, wearing a black coat. His skin was pale gray, his teeth too sharp. He spoke with a broken accent. "Welcome, traveler. You want food? You want meat?" The man nodded, trying to act calm. "Yes, a steak rare." The alien's grin widened in a way that felt wrong. "Good choice, very rare, very fresh." He motioned for the man to sit. The man sat at a corner table, the chair hard and cold. He glanced around. Something about this place felt strange. The other diners kept looking at him, whispering behind clawed hands. Some even laughed under their breath. He shifted uncomfortably, but his hunger kept him in the seat. The alien waiter returned with a menu made of metal plates, but the words were nonsense, symbols he could not read. "No need menu. Rare steak is best, yes?" The man forced a small smile. "Yes, rare steak." The waiter bowed, then disappeared into the back. The man tapped the table nervously. His instincts whispered that something was wrong. The air was too thick, too quiet, and too many eyes were on him. He had been in many alien worlds before, but this silence felt heavy, like waiting for a cruel joke. Minutes passed. The sound of chains clinking echoed faintly from behind the kitchen door. He frowned. Did they keep animals chained in there? The thought was strange, but maybe it was just part of their cooking style. He pushed the worry aside. The doors swung open and the waiter stepped out. 2 smaller aliens followed him, carrying a silver tray covered with a dark lid. The whole restaurant turned silent. All eyes focused on him. The man felt his heart beat faster. His hands grew tight on the table edge. The tray was placed before him with a heavy sound. The lid shook slightly, as if something beneath it had moved. His breath caught in his throat. This was no normal steak, he could feel it. The waiter grinned with sharp teeth and slowly lifted the lid. The room seemed to hold its breath. The man leaned forward, unsure if he wanted to see what was underneath. And then he saw her. It was not meat. It was not cooked food. On the tray lay a small alien girl, chained at the wrists and ankles. Her skin was pale blue, her eyes wide with fear. She was breathing fast, trembling as the cold metal touched her skin. The man's face froze in shock. His fork slipped from his fingers, clattering against the plate. The girl looked at him, her lips trembling, her eyes full of silent pleading. She was alive. The restaurant erupted with laughter. The aliens around him clapped their hands, hissed, and shouted words he could not understand. Some pointed at him, mocking. Others leaned forward, waiting to see what he would do. The waiter leaned close, whispering with a cruel grin. "Your steak, traveler, fresh, rare, just as you wanted." The man's stomach turned, his hunger vanished instantly. He could not believe what he was seeing. Was this a joke? Was this real? Were these monsters asking him to eat a living girl? The girl let out a small whimper, pulling at her chains, but she was too weak. Her eyes locked on his, begging him for help. The man's hands shook. He wanted to stand, to shout, to fight, but the whole room was watching. Dozens of aliens, stronger and larger than him, were waiting for his choice. If he refused, would they kill him? If he acted, could he even save her? The silence grew heavier again, broken only by the girl's trembling breaths. The aliens leaned closer, hungry for his answer. The man's heart pounded in his chest. His mind raced. He knew one thing for certain. This was no ordinary restaurant, and this was no ordinary meal. This was a test, a trap, a nightmare dressed as dinner, and he had just walked straight into it. The man's hand trembled as he looked down at the tray. The alien girl lay before him, chained and shaking. Her body was thin, her face pale, and her big glowing eyes filled with fear. She was no steak, no food. She was alive. The entire restaurant laughed. Their strange voices echoed through the room, sharp and mocking. Some slammed their fists on tables, others hissed with excitement. They were not eating, they were watching him. They had brought him here for entertainment. The waiter leaned closer, his sharp teeth shining under the blue light. Rare steak, very fresh, very soft. Eat, human, eat. His voice was low and cruel. The man's throat went dry, his stomach twisted. He had fought in wars before. He had seen terrible things, but this was different. He had never seen a living child placed as food before. He stared into her wide eyes, and in that moment he knew. This girl was not just some alien. She was someone. The girl's lips moved, but no sound came. Her chains rattled as she struggled weakly. She was too small, too weak. Her eyes begged him, pleaded with him to save her. The man looked around. Every alien eye in the room was fixed on him. The diners leaned forward, waiting to see what he would do. They were smiling, cruel smiles. They wanted a show. They wanted him to prove that humans were just like them, monsters who could eat the helpless. The knife and fork lay in front of him. The waiter pushed them closer. "Cut," he hissed. "Taste her blood. Prove you can eat rare steak." The man gritted his teeth. His fingers twitched over the knife handle, but he did not lift it. His mind raced. He was one man, alone in a crowded alien city. If he refused, what would they do? If he resisted, would they kill him and the girl both? The laughter grew louder. Some aliens began chanting, "Eat, eat, eat." Their voices filled the restaurant, shaking the walls. The girl squeezed her eyes shut, as if preparing for pain. A tear slid down her cheek. The man's heart hammered. In his chest he had two choices: play along with their twisted game, or risk everything to defy them. He felt anger burning inside him. Anger at the cruelty. Anger at the chains. Anger at the laughter. His hand reached forward. Everyone leaned closer, waiting. The knife lifted slightly. His jaw clenched tight. His arm trembled as he raised it. The aliens roared in excitement, believing the human would obey, but then he slammed the knife into the wooden table instead. The sound cracked through the room like a gunshot. Silence fell. The laughter stopped. Dozens of alien eyes blinked in shock. The man's voice was low but firm. "She's not food." The waiter froze, his smile fading. His forearms twitched. "What you say, human? Not food. She is meal. She is meat." The man stood slowly, his chair scraping the floor. "She's a living being. I won't touch her." Gasps filled the room. The diners hissed. Some stood from their tables angry and confused. This had never happened. Before, no one had ever refused the meal. The alien girl opened her eyes again, surprise flashing through them. For the first time, hope flickered in her trembling body. The waiter's grin returned, but now it was colder, sharper. "If you do not eat, then maybe we eat you." His voice dripped with threat. The room filled with cruel laughter once more, but this time it carried sharp edges of danger. The man's fists clenched. His mind raced for a plan. He could not fight them all. Not here, but he also could not leave her chained. He had to act carefully. The waiter snapped his fingers and two large guards stepped forward. Their bodies were massive, covered in scales with arms like hammers. They carried long blades that glowed faintly in the blue light. The man's heart pounded harder. He glanced down at the girl again. Her eyes were wide. She shook her head faintly as if telling him not to fight, but deep inside he knew, if he did nothing she would die tonight. The guards moved closer. The crowd cheered, chanting again, "Eat him, eat him." The man bent slowly, pretending to reach for the knife again. The aliens laughed louder, thinking he had finally given in, but his eyes burned with fire. He was not giving in. He was planning. His muscles tensed, his hands itched to strike. The girl's chains rattled again as she tried to move. The waiter leaned closer, whispering, "Choose human. Eat her, or be eaten." The man raised his head, meeting the alien's cruel eyes, and a cold smile touched his lips. He was not afraid anymore. Something inside him had shifted. If this city wanted to test a human, they were about to learn the hardest truth. Humans do not eat the weak. Humans fight for them. The room waited, breathless, unaware that in the next moment, everything inside this restaurant would explode into chaos. The knife still stood in the table, its sharp edge buried deep into the wood. The man's refusal echoed inside the strange restaurant like thunder. Every alien eye stared at him with cold fire. The laughter had died, replaced by hissing low, growls and whispers in languages he could not understand. The alien girl was still lying on the tray, her chains rattling faintly. She stared at him, her glowing eyes wide with shock and something new. Hope. Her lips parted as if she wanted to speak, but no words came out. Only a faint, trembling breath. She was too weak, too starved, too broken to speak loudly, but her eyes were screaming, louder than any voice. They begged him, "Please don't leave me. Please don't let them eat me." The man clenched his fists at his sides, his heart hammered with anger. He could see her ribs pressing against her thin blue skin. He could see the bruises around her wrists where the chains had rubbed her raw. She was not just a victim, she was a prisoner. And these aliens had been using her as food. The waiter leaned forward, his grin returning, sharper and darker. "You defy us, human? You insult our custom?" His voice echoed across the room. The crowd hissed and shouted. Some slammed their cups down, others pounded the tables. The man did not look at them. His eyes stayed on the girl. He could not look away, not when her silent plea was burning into him. Her fear was strong, but hidden beneath it was a tiny spark of trust. The waiter slammed his forearms down on the table, making the plates rattle. "If you do not eat her, then we feed on you. Human flesh is rare too." The crowd roared, with cruel laughter again. The two guards stepped closer, their glowing blades humming in the thick air. Their heavy footsteps shook the floor. The man's mind raced. He was alone, unarmed, outnumbered by dozens. But he was human, and humans were stubborn. They did not bow easily. They did not let children die while they watched. He leaned closer to the girl. His voice dropped low, so only she could hear, "I will not hurt you, I promise." Her wide eyes blinked, a tear slid down her cheek. She nodded faintly, the tiniest motion. That was all he needed. He straightened slowly. His gaze swept across the restaurant. The aliens were ready for blood. Their claws clicked against the tables, their teeth glistened in the blue light. They wanted him to fall, to beg, to break. Instead, he smiled coldly. "I will never eat the weak." His voice carried through the silence, firm and unshaken. The crowd hissed in fury. Some shouted, others spat on the floor. The guards raised their glowing blades higher. The waiter bared his sharp teeth. The man's muscles tensed. He knew what was coming. He could feel it, the fight, the danger, the blood, but he also knew something else. He was not leaving this place without her. The guards lunged forward, their blades slashed down. The man ducked fast, his chair toppling back. The crowd gasped in shock as the human moved quicker than they expected. His hand grabbed the knife from the table. He pulled it free in one sharp motion. The girl flinched, but then her eyes widened as she saw him turn the blade, not on her but on the guards. The first guard swung. The man ducked again and stabbed upward, cutting across the guard's arm. The alien roared in pain, his blade clattering against the wall. The second guard attacked from the side. The man rolled across the floor, his boots scraping against the tiles. He came up near the tray. The girl, staring at him with wide eyes, he met her gaze for just a heartbeat and whispered, "Hold on." The room erupted into chaos. Aliens shouted, chairs fell, cups spilled. The waiter screeched. his forearms reaching for the man, but the human kicked the heavy tray with all his strength. It slid across the floor, sending the girl rolling away from the waiter's grasp. She gasped softly, her chains rattling as she hit the corner wall, but she was safe, for now the man stood tall, knife in hand, facing the crowd of furious aliens. His chest heaved with breath, his eyes burned with fire. "Come then," he growled. "If you want to eat, you'll choke on me first." The room fell silent again for just a moment. The aliens had expected fear. They had expected begging. Instead, they saw a human standing tall, protecting the weakest one in the room. The girl's chains rattled again. She tried to pull herself upright, but her body was too weak. Still, she kept her eyes on him, filled with silent trust. Her lips trembled as if she wanted to say the word "thank you," but no sound came out. That silent plea cut deeper into the man's heart than any blade could. He knew now. He could not escape without her. He would not leave her behind, not even if it cost him his life. The waiter hissed loudly, snapping his fingers. More guards began to move from the shadows. The crowd leaned forward, eager for blood. The air grew heavy with violence. The man tightened his grip on the knife, his jaw set firm. The girl stared at him, and in that stare was a fragile thread of hope. She could not speak, she could not shout, but her eyes said everything. "Please save me." And he had already decided he would, no matter the cost. The restaurant was about to turn into a battlefield. The restaurant had turned into a cage. The human stood in the center, knife in hand, the alien girl chained near the wall and the crowd of strange creatures pressing closer. Their hisses echoed like snakes. Their eyes glowed in the dim blue light. Their claws tapped the tables like drums of... Or the waiter with 4 arms raised his voice, sharp and cruel. "You dare refuse? You dare fight? In this house no one denies the meal." His grin stretched wide. "Now you pay the price." The guards circled the man, their glowing blades humming in the air. They moved slowly, like predators playing with prey. The crowd leaned forward, eager for blood, eager to watch him break. The man's chest rose and fell, his grip firm on the knife. His eyes flicked to the girl in chains. She was trembling, her lips moving silently. Her plea was not for herself alone, but for him too. She did not want him to die here, not for her. The man swallowed hard. His mind raced. He could fight and maybe die, or he could give in and walk away, leave the girl behind. That would save his life, but no. The thought burned in his chest. He had seen too many people abandoned, too many innocents crushed. He was human, and humans did not abandon those who begged for help. The first guard lunged, swinging his blade down. The man ducked, sparks flying as the blade slammed into the wooden table. The crowd cheered wildly. The second guard swung from the side, and the man twisted, grabbing the alien's wrist and slashing across it with his knife. A roar filled the room as blue blood sprayed across the floor. The alien howled, staggering back. The waiter hissed in fury, slamming his 4 fists on the table. "Kill him! Tear him apart!" More guards rushed forward, heavy footsteps pounding the floor. The crowd shouted louder, the whole room shook with the storm of noise. The man's breath came fast. He knew he could not win this fight forever. Too many, too strong. His only chance was to escape with the girl. He looked at her again, her eyes wide, her small body trembling as she tried to rise. Her chains clinked against the wall. She was weak, but her gaze burned with desperate trust. She was waiting for him to decide, and then the dangerous choice became clear. He could stay here, fight, until he was cut down, and both of them would die. Or he could risk everything in one reckless attempt to break her free and run. There was no time left. The guards were closing in, their blades lifted, their claws ready. The man took a deep breath. His voice came low, almost a whisper. "Hold on, little one, I'm not leaving you here." Then he moved. He kicked the table into the nearest guard, sending plates and cups crashing to the ground. The crowd shrieked, some in rage, others in excitement. The human dashed across the floor, knife flashing as he slashed the chain holding the girls. Ankles, sparks flew, the metal groaned, and one shackle snapped. The girl gasped, her glowing eyes wider than ever. The waiter screeched, "Stop him!" But the man did not stop. His knife came down again hard, striking the wrist chains. Another snap. The girl's arms fell free, bruised but unchained. She cried out weakly, her voice finally breaking the silence. "Please. Help." That one. Word struck his heart like a hammer. It gave him strength. The guards lunged again, blades cutting through the air. The man scooped the girl into his arms. She was light, far too light, like a starving child. He held her close, knife still ready. The crowd screamed. The guards surrounded him. The waiter shouted orders in his alien tongue. The restaurant became a storm of chaos. The man's eyes darted toward the doorway. It was far, blocked by bodies, but it was their only escape. He shifted his grip on the girl, tightened his hold on the knife, and ran. The first guard slashed at him. He ducked low, sparks bursting as the blade struck the wall. He shoved past. Kicking a chair into another alien's chest, the girl clung to him, weak but holding on. The crowd tried to block him, claws reaching, teeth snapping. He shoved them aside, his knife flashing, not killing but cutting paths through the sea of bodies. The doorway loomed closer, but the guards were faster. They leapt ahead, blocking his path, their glowing blades raised high. The man stopped for a split second, breathing hard. His mind raced again, his choices were gone. His back was against the wall. The girl whimpered softly, burying her face in his chest. The waiter hissed loudly, "Nowhere to go, human. Give her back and maybe we let you live." The man's jaw clenched. His eyes burned with fury. He knew this was his final moment to choose. He could give up, hand her over, save himself, or he could fight with everything he had, knowing it might kill him. His voice came low, cold, and steady. "If you want her, you'll have to kill me first." The guards roared and charged. The human roared back, knife raised, heart burning. It was the most dangerous choice of his life, but it was the only one his soul could accept. The girl tightened her weak arms around his neck, whispering a broken word into his ear. "Don't let go." And he didn't, not now, not ever. The battle exploded in the doorway, steel and claws clashing, roars shaking the walls. The human had chosen, and now there was no turning back. The doorway shook with violence. The man fought like a cornered wolf, his knife flashing in the dim blue light. The alien guards were larger, stronger, their glowing blades heavy and sharp. But he had something they didn't, a reason to fight. He carried the girl in one arm, and he would not let her go. The crowd screamed in fury. Some shouted for his death, others cheered the chaos. Chairs flew, plates smashed, claws scratched across the floor. The restaurant had turned into a battlefield. The man ducked under a blade, his boots sliding across the floor. He slashed upward, cutting the guard's chest. The alien roared, stumbling. Back, blue blood sprayed across the wall. The second guard lunged from the side, but the man spun, kicking a table into his legs. The alien crashed down, the crowd shrieking in rage. The waiter with 4 arms pointed toward him, spitting orders. "Kill him! Kill the thief. Don't let him leave." More bodies rushed forward. Their claws reached for the girl. Their teeth snapped at the human's face, but his fury burned hotter than their hunger. He punched one alien across the jaw, stabbed another's shoulder, and kicked the path clear with raw human strength. The girl clung to him weakly. Her small hands gripped his shirt, her eyes wide with terror but also with something else. Faith. She believed he could do it. She believed he could save her, but the exit was still far, and more guards blocked the way. His knife was small, his arm was tired. He knew he couldn't cut through all of them forever. His mind raced. He needed a plan, not just a fight. His eyes darted around the restaurant, and then he saw it. A row of hanging glass lanterns above the tables, glowing with strange blue fire. The chains holding them looked thin, fragile. An idea struck like lightning. The man shoved forward, forcing his way through the bodies. He ducked under claws, twisted past blades, and then jumped onto a chair. His free hand grabbed the nearest lantern chain. He yanked hard. Metal. Screeching, sparks burst as the chain snapped. The lantern crashed to the floor, exploding in a burst of fire and smoke. The crowd screamed, stumbling back as blue flames licked across the ground. The air filled with thick smoke. The man didn't waste a second. He kicked the broken table aside and sprinted through the chaos, using the smoke as cover. The girl coughed weakly against his chest, her eyes stinging from the fumes, but she clung to him tighter. The waiter screeched furiously, "Stop him! Stop him!" But the smoke made the guards blind. Their blades cut at shadows, their roars shaking the walls. The man ran fast, every muscle burning. His lungs ached, his knife still gripped tight. He dodged between staggering bodies and leapt over broken chairs. His eyes locked on the door. At last he reached it, but just as he was about to push through, a massive hand grabbed his arm. The third guard, bigger than the rest, towered over him. Its glowing eyes blazed with rage. Its claws squeezed. His arm like iron, the girl screamed weakly, her chains rattling as she kicked at the guard, but her strength was too small. The man roared, slamming his head into the guard's face. The alien snarled, loosening its grip. The human twisted his knife and stabbed it deep into the guard's side. The alien let out a deafening roar, collapsing to the floor. The man pulled the door open with his free hand. Blue smoke poured into the street. The night air hit his face like a wave of freedom, but it wasn't over. The alien city outside was alive. Crowds of creatures filled the streets, glowing signs lit the night, and now every eye turned toward him. The human carrying a stolen meal in his arms. Shouts filled the air. Alarms began to ring. The restaurant guards poured out behind. Him. The waiter's screech echoed through the street. "Catch them! Don't let them escape!" The man's legs burned as he ran into the twisting alleys. The girl pressed against him, whispering broken words. "Don't. Let go." "I won't," he muttered through gritted teeth. His boots pounded against the stone streets. His eyes darted left and right, searching for a way out. The city was a maze of tall towers, glowing wires, and dark tunnels. He needed somewhere to hide, somewhere to breathe. The sounds of pursuit grew louder behind him. Heavy footsteps, alien roars, the clang of blades against walls. They were hunting. Him, closing in. He ducked into a narrow alley, the shadows swallowing them both. He pressed his back against the wall, his chest heaving. The girl clung to him, her glowing eyes wide and wet with tears. For a moment, silence hung heavy. Only their breathing filled the dark. The man looked down at her. "We're not safe yet, but I'll get you out." She stared back at him, her lips trembling. She could not speak more than a few broken words, but her eyes said everything. They said thank you, they said please don't give up, and he wouldn't, not now, not ever. Behind them, the roar of the crowd grew louder. The guards were spreading through the streets, searching, sniffing, hunting. The escape was far from over. The man tightened his grip on the knife. His arm ached, his body was bruised, but his spirit burned brighter than ever. He whispered to the girl, his voice low and steady, "Stay with me. We'll find a way." Because this was not just a fight anymore. This was survival. This was a promise. And no matter how many aliens came, he was ready to keep it. The narrow alley was dark, the air heavy with smoke from the restaurant. The man pressed his back against the wall, holding the alien girl tight in his arms. Her breathing was shallow, her chains still clinking softly. He could feel how light she was. Too light, like she hadn't eaten properly in weeks. But there was no time to think. Behind them came the sound of heavy boots, claws scraping against the stone, voices shouting in alien tongue. The hunt had begun. The man took a deep breath, his jaw tight. "Hold on, little one, we're not done yet." He shifted her weight in his arms and ran. The city was alive with chaos. Glowing signs flickered above him. Strange machines hovered overhead, and creatures of different shapes filled the streets. But now every face turned toward him. Their eyes glowed, their mouths hissed. Some shouted, to the guards pointing at the human running with their meal. The alien girl whimpered, burying her face into his chest. The man tightened his grip, his boots pounding against the cracked ground. The guards poured into the streets, massive figures with glowing blades and sharp teeth. They shouted orders, splitting into groups. Some rushed down the main road. Others swarmed the alleys. Their hunting cries echoed across the towers. The man ducked into another passage, narrow and winding. He slid between barrels and crates, his knife still clutched in one hand. His breath burned in his lungs. His muscles ached, but he kept moving. The girl looked up at him weakly, her glowing eyes wide. She whispered in a broken voice, "Run, fast." He gave a tight smile. "Don't worry, I can run faster than them." Behind them, footsteps pounded closer. The shadows shifted as two guards appeared, their blades humming with deadly light. The man cursed under his breath and spun into another alley. He leapt over a broken cart, his boots slamming onto the stones. The girl gasped but held onto him tightly. One of the guards roared, swinging his blade through the cart he had just cleared. The wood exploded into splinters, but the human was already gone, his speed carrying him deeper into the maze. The city twisted endlessly, towers leaning above, wires buzzing with energy, strange smells drifting from vents. He didn't know the way, but he trusted his instincts. His only plan was to keep running, keep surviving. He darted into a tunnel, the walls damp and narrow. His steps echoed. The girl shivered in his arms, whispering weakly, "Cold, I know," he muttered. "Just a little longer. I'll get you somewhere safe." A growl echoed ahead. His heart sank. More guards appeared from the shadows. Their glowing eyes caught him in the dark. Trapped. The man skidded to a stop, his chest heaving. The girl whimpered, pressing against him. He turned, and behind them more footsteps thundered closer. The guards were closing in from both sides. For a moment it seemed hopeless, but then he spotted a ladder bolted to the wall leading up into the city above. His jaw tightened. He sprinted forward, leapt onto the ladder and began to climb. His muscles screamed from the weight. The girl clung tighter, her chains rattling softly. Below, the guards roared, rushing toward the wall. One of them leapt, his claws scraping the ladder's metal. The man kicked downward, his boot slamming into the alien's face. The creature snarled, falling back into the crowd. He climbed higher, his breath ragged. The ladder shook as blades slashed at the metal below. Sparks rained. The girl gasped, her glowing eyes filled with fear. "Don't look down," the man whispered. They reached the rooftop, wind rushing against. His face, the city spread out below, towers glowing. Smoke rising, the sounds of the hunt filled the air. Horns blaring, alarms echoing. The man crouched low, running across the roof. His boots clanged against the metal. His eyes searched desperately for another escape, but the guards were relentless. They climbed after him, their glowing blades leaving trails of light. Their roars shook the night. The girl trembled in his arms, whispering faintly, Why help me?" He glanced at her, even while running. His voice came steady. "Because no one deserves chains." Her eyes widened, a tear sliding down her cheek. She held onto him tighter. The rooftop ended ahead. A wide gap stretched between. Towers below was a deep street filled with shadows. The guards were closing in. Their claws scraped against the roof, sparks flying. The man's breath caught in his chest, his legs tensed. He had no choice. He sprinted faster, every muscle screaming. He held the girl close and leapt. For a heartbeat they flew, air rushing past them. The city lights blurred. The girl gasped, her arms wrapping around him tighter. They crashed onto the next rooftop, rolling hard. His shoulder burned, his ribs ached. But he forced himself up. The girl coughed weakly, looking at him with wide eyes. He gave a small grin. "See? Told you I could run faster than them." Behind them, the guards roared in fury. Some tried to leap the gap but fell short, slamming into the walls below. Others circled back, searching for another way. The man didn't stop. He kept running. Across the rooftops, the girl in his arms. The city chasing them like a hungry beast. But even as exhaustion dragged at his body, one thought burned in his mind. He could not stop. Not until she was safe. And somewhere ahead, hidden in the darkness of this alien city, he knew there had to be a place where they could vanish, even if just for a moment. The chase was far from over, but he would not let them win. Not tonight. Not while she still breathed. The night air was sharp on the rooftop. The man's breath came heavy. His muscles screamed with every step, but he did not stop. He carried the alien girl close against his chest. Her chains clinked softly, her body weak, but her glowing eyes never left his face. Behind them, the city roared. Guards shouted from rooftops, alien horns wailed through the streets. Searchlights swept the towers, cutting through the smoke. The hunt had spread across the district. The man ducked low, moving across the rooftops, slipping into shadows. His mind raced. He needed a place to hide, somewhere safe, somewhere they couldn't reach. At last he spotted it, an old outpost at the edge of the city, its roof broken, its walls cracked, long abandoned. It was dangerous, but it was shelter. He jumped down a fire escape, his boots clanging softly. He slipped into the ruins, the girl still tight in his arms. Inside it was dark, only the sound of dripping water echoing through the empty halls. He set her down gently on a broken bench, her small frame slumped forward, her chains rattling. She coughed weakly, her glowing eyes filled with exhaustion. The man knelt before her, catching his breath. His shirt was torn, his arm bruised, but his eyes burned with determination. "We're safe for now." The girl stared at him silent, her lips trembled. She tried to speak, but her voice broke. At last, a single whisper escaped. "Why? Help me?" The man paused, his chest rose and fell. He looked into her wide, trembling eyes, and his voice came steady. "Because you're alive. Because you're not food. Because no one deserves to be treated like that." Her lips parted, her eyes filled. With tears, she lowered her head, a sob breaking free. She had been treated like an animal for so long that kindness felt unreal. The man reached out, gently touching the chains still hanging from her wrists. He pulled his knife and cut them away. The broken pieces fell to the floor with a sharp clang. The girl gasped, staring at her freed wrists. She rubbed them slowly, feeling the skin without iron biting into it for the first time in years. Her eyes watered again, she whispered, almost too soft to hear. "Free." He gave a small smile. "Yes, you're free now." She looked at him, her lips trembling, and whispered again, "Thank you." Those two words cut deeper into him than any blade could. He had fought, bled, and risked everything tonight, and hearing them made it worth it. Outside, the sound of searching still filled the city, but here in the ruined outpost, time seemed to pause. The girl shifted slowly, weakly crawling closer to him. She placed her small hand on his chest. Her glowing eyes shone through the dark. "You protect me?" He met her gaze, his jaw firm. "Yes, I promise I'll protect you no matter what." Her body trembled, not from fear now, but from relief. She leaned against him, her head resting against his shoulder. For the first time in years, she felt safe. The man wrapped his arm around her carefully. Holding her close, he looked out into the night. The alien city still alive with the hunt, but his heart was calm. He had chosen, and he had no regrets. He whispered softly, almost to himself, "Let them come. I'll fight them all if I have to." The girl's eyes closed, her breathing soft. She whispered one last word before drifting into sleep. "Belong." The man froze. His heart tightened. He understood what she meant. She was saying she belonged, not to chains, not to the aliens who treated her as meat, but to him, to the one who had chosen to see her as a person, not food. His throat felt heavy. He looked down at her fragile form, and a quiet smile touched his lips. "Yes," he murmured. "You belong, and I'll never let them take you again." The night stretched on. The sounds of guards echoed far in the distance, but inside the ruins, there was only silence. The man sat there, holding her, his body bruised, his knife still in his hand, his eyes watching the shadows, waiting for danger. But for the first time since he had walked into that cursed restaurant, he did not feel alone. He had someone to protect, and she had someone to trust. A bond had been forged that night, not of chains, but of choice, of hope, of humanity, and in a galaxy filled with cruelty and hunger, that bond was stronger than any weapon.